Okay, so I'll begin my speech now. Ladies and gentlemen, aside from the pandemic, I think that we can all agree that in 2021, high up on the international agenda is climate change and the environment. One of the main contributors to climate change is the production of energy from the burning of fossil fuels. And today, I'd like to talk about a specific aspect of this, namely the connection between cryptocurrencies and energy consumption. In other words, the carbon footprint left by Bitcoin and friends. I became interested in this issue recently when I read an article in the Guardian newspaper that was called "Why the Bitcoin is Bad for the Environment." But first and foremost, what is Bitcoin? It is defined as a digital currency, and it first came around in January 2009. It follows the ideas of a white paper written by the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto. It promises lower transaction fees than the traditional online payment mechanisms. Furthermore, unlike government-issued currency, it isn't operated by a centralized bank, but rather by a decentralized authority. If you go to bitcoin.org, we can see that they talk about things like peer-to-peer technology, the absence of a central bank, collective management and issuing of Bitcoins. And they also mention that it is open source software, that it is a public design, that no one owns or controls it, and everyone can participate. So to there, it all sounds pretty good, especially for those of us who are partial to sticking it to the man on Wall Street from time to time. However, if Bitcoin is only in the digital world, then it must be stored on servers. And unfortunately, servers don't run off of fresh air. And this is where it starts to get a little bit iffy. While recently the value of the Bitcoin reached a landmark high of $62,000, the energy needs required, or the energy required to create it, continue to soar also. This is because they need power in order to mine the Bitcoins. Bitcoin mining. This is the process in which Bitcoins are awarded to a computer that is able to solve a complex series of algorithms. And this process is very energy intensive. A few years ago, mining could be done on just the average computer. However, because of its design, today, the system was defined in such a way that there's a finite number of coins that can be mined. There are only 21 million. And the more coins that are mined, the more difficult the algorithms that are to be solved become. To date, about 18.5 million Bitcoins have been mined, and therefore the average computer can no longer deal with the algorithms. Today, for Bitcoin mining, special computer equipment is required in order to handle the sheer power needed to process the Bitcoin mining. And of course, computers need electricity. It is estimated that around or between 80 and 115 terawatt hours are required per year to mine Bitcoin. That is around the equivalent of the energy needs of a country like Ireland. That's a lot of electricity. Furthermore, one single Bitcoin transaction has a similar carbon footprint to 680,000 Visa transactions. Now, the proponents of Bitcoin say that the environmental costs involved in mining are worth the broader impacts that Bitcoin could have on society. Furthermore, they claim that Bitcoin mining is being done increasingly with renewable energies. In fact, they also state that it uses less energy compared to more wasteful uses of energy, such as devices or appliances that are plugged in at home, but which are not being used. However, the critics suggest that it is still a concern because miners will go wherever the cost of electricity is lowest. And that means that they will go to places where coal is burned to produce energy. In fact, China is the leader in terms of energy production for cryptocurrencies. It is responsible for about 80% of the energy needs of cryptocurrencies. This could also, in fact, hinder China's aims to reduce carbon emissions by 2030. And while the country has increased its use of renewable energies, it still gets about 2/3 of its energy production from burning coal. Furthermore, as there are no government bodies or organizations in charge of tracking where the energy is produced or what type of energy is used, it is almost impossible to know if fossil fuels or renewable sources are being used. However, the proponents of Bitcoin suggest that in order for it to fulfill its role as a secure global value transfer and storage system, then it just has to be costly. It's a price they're willing to pay. And that sometimes revolutionary technology that brings about significant change in society, very often it brings with it trade-offs. That being said, some supporters of Bitcoin suggest that there is no need for a trade-off. In fact, the creators of the second most popular cryptocurrency, Etherum, have promised to change the algorithm in order to reduce the impact on the environment. But as Bitcoin remains the leader in terms of cryptocurrencies and it continues to gain ground, then only will its environmental impact continue to grow. In conclusion, I would say that the possibilities for technical development or technological development in all areas of life are boundless. I mean, who would have thought just a few years ago that today we'd all be struggling to remember our PIN codes because of how commonplace contactless has become. However, today more than ever, technological development has been forced to get into the ring with environmental concerns. And this is just another example of this. So who will win this battle? Who will have to compromise? As with most things, only time will tell. Thank you.